Bruce Feldman from The Athletic and Fox Sports college football analyst right here on The Rich Eisen Show. How are you, Bruce?
I'm doing well, Rich. Good to be on with you.
Yeah, good to be on with you, too, here. Before we get to the four, let's talk about who's not in it. What is the College Football Playoff Committee telling Clemson by putting Clemson at 5 in the first iteration of this college football playoff?
I think they're telling them that they know the ACC stinks and that the rest of the ACC is just not very good. I think they're also telling them, hey, we saw you almost lose to a really mediocre North Carolina team. And I think that is hurt them. But it's, in the end, unless they stumble, and they have, Clemson has no margin for error. Some of these SEC teams, a few, might have a little margin for error, and one of them is getting way more benefit of the doubt.
Okay, so no margin for error, meaning they can't slip up, Clemson, in any way, shape, or form by dropping one game in 2019 because their conference stinks or because their schedule wasn't nearly in their mind, in the minds of the College Football Playoff Committee, up to snuff to benefit from just one late season slip up in division or in conference.
I would say it's more a reflection of their conference stinks because I'm not going to fault Clemson too much. They scheduled two SEC teams. They're one of their big rivals is South Carolina. Not their fault South Carolina hasn't been very good. By the way, that South Carolina team did go to Georgia and beat the Bulldogs.
Right.
And they played Texas A&M, who is getting better. And, I mean, that's not bad to schedule two SEC teams in the non-conference. The problem is everybody else is just not good in the ACC right now. The only team I think that is playing very well is Wake Forest. And Wake Forest, if they lose to Clemson, they're going to probably be hanging around, maybe a top 25 team, maybe not. So that's just not giving them much juice in the committee's eyes. And when they play a conference title game, they're probably not going to be dealing with a top 25 team, so they're not going to get much of a boost off that either. And that's why if they stumble somewhere, I don't think they're going to make a playoff. Now, I don't think they're going to stumble, but that's kind of their reality right now.
I guess so, Bruce. But why? Because why should Clemson have to suffer because the conference stinks when we're looking at potentially a winner of a Pac-12 championship game between Utah and Oregon having a better standing coming out of the Pac-12 than a one-loss Clemson? Should Clemson slip up over the next month?
I just think because the Pac-12 is a little better across the board than what you have. The ACC is really bad right now. I mean, we're seeing it when there's basically three programs that I would say fit into the mode of being powerhouse programs. Two of them are way down right now. Florida State just fired Willie Taggart after less than 2 seasons, and Manny Diaz in year one in Miami is very shaky. I mean, when you look, when your second best program right now is Wake Forest, and that's, look, credit to Dave Clawson and that staff, but they are not, it's just not, they are not seen as an elite program. And so when it's Clemson and everybody else is kind of just spinning their wheels or feels like a 500 team, that's not going to convince the committee of much. And again, it's not like they completely dominated these teams they played. They really struggled against a very average North Carolina team. They almost lost that game, and that hurts. I mean, Ohio State has just pulverized everybody they've played, and they've played at least a little better competition than what Clemson has played.
Bruce Feldman, Fox Sports college football analyst, also from The Athletic here in the Honda Insider Report. Where does the committee meet? Walk me through, and I'll explain why in a second why I'm asking this question. What?
They are in the Dallas area, not that far from the airport, in this place that is the Gaylord Hotel. That's like its own little / city into itself, and almost like a little dude ranch into itself.
Okay, and how many people are there? Does everyone do it in person? Everyone literally flies in every weekend to have a conversation?
Yeah, so we've had, there's been a lot of us who have, in the media, who have taken part in this mock exercise to give us a little bit of a feel for what goes on. They don't give you the same year. I don't remember. Maybe it was 5 years earlier, the model that my group had to do, and you simulate, and you're one of the people who who is at that point I think I was supposed to be Tyrone Willingham.
Okay.
So he was on the committee at that point, and so you're recused from certain things if you have certain kind of connections, and you have to leave the room or you're not part of that discussion.
So the media has gone through like a simulator, sort of like, because
exactly.
I mean, I just saw Apollo 13. So like you go through like a simulator, like you're in the football LEM, and you walk through this so you have a better understanding of what the college football committee is going through.
You do, but the thing is, Rich, everybody brings their own biases to this, and the get out of jail free card for them is who do I think is best? Where's this eye test fits? And that's why I think you see Alabama in the top four when Alabama hasn't played anybody either. Relative to what Clemson's schedule is.
The reason
they
why
haven't played anybody now.
The reason why I'm asking all this, Bruce, is I'm just wondering if the security's tight there, or who's monitoring the food or the drink, because somebody must have dropped something in there with LSU and Alabama playing a game that the whole country is going to stop for, and it's the SEC, and it just, wait a minute, let me look at my notes here, means more, and a Big Ten team was ranked higher than every other team. Did that really just happen? I mean, a Big Ten team is better than an SEC team? Really? Just like that? Bruce?
Yeah, I mean, it's not a 1-2, it's a 2-3. I don't think it's going to diminish any of the buzz around it. It just maybe CBS probably kind of winced when they saw that, whatever it was at 9:30 Eastern or whatever that thing rolled around.
Yeah, they can't put a 1 up there, huh? They can't put a 1 because that belongs to a Big Ten team from Columbus. How about that?
Yeah, look, well, because of Notre Dame, they can't put it at night either because they put their money on the Notre Dame-Georgia game, and I'm sure that rated well. This thing, I'm sure, will rate gangbusters. And look, and a lot of this is going to shake out. If LSU beats Alabama in Tuscaloosa, I'd be surprised if LSU is not going to be the number 1 team in the playoff rankings, and then a lot of this stuff doesn't matter that much at this point.
No, I know,
I really think it gets overblown
because everybody does play each other, and we will see eventually a conversation about who makes it, and then there will be some really angry people. But I'll remove my tongue firmly planted in cheek for a second to say, why is Ohio State ranked? Pardon me, the Ohio State ranked above 2 SEC teams through a couple months here, in your estimation?
The eyeball test has helped them. They have been dominant on both sides of the ball. As somebody who has seen Ohio State in person this year, I would agree with that. They have been the most impressive team. And I feel like as talented as Ohio State has been in the last few years, and you see a lot of that reflected in all those guys who are in the NFL now and doing well, I think this team feels different than the ones that Urban Meyer had in the last few years, and just the way they are playing. And their strength of schedule, the numbers actually are pretty good. Now, certainly Wisconsin has sputtered a little bit, but you see, I think they're going to get a boost off that. They're certainly going to get a boost off of when they play Penn State. They're going to get a boost off of playing your alma mater. The way the committee has done this, they may have an opportunity to be a 12-1 conference champ and get into the playoff. It would not shock me right now. I'm not saying it's a lock, but you may have as much chance of 2 Big Ten teams getting in as you have potentially of 2 SEC teams getting in. I mean, we'll see what happens now, but I think Penn State has got the committee's attention. They're going to play Minnesota, who hasn't really played anybody yet, but they are undefeated. If Penn State whips them, they're going to play an Indiana team that hasn't really played anybody great yet either, but they're 7-2. I mean, Penn State has a lot that they can build off of for momentum, and certainly Ohio State does too.
What if Minnesota runs the table, sir? That would mean that they would have wins against Penn State and Wisconsin and Iowa, and assumedly against the Ohio State and Indianapolis in a Big Ten championship game. There's a path there, just the same as there's a path for Baylor too, wouldn't you say, right now?
Oh, there's definitely a path. I mean, those teams, and certainly I would put Baylor in this, they just aren't going to get the benefit of the doubt some of these other powerhouse programs are going to get right now. And especially with Minnesota's non-conference being what it was. I mean, our crew happened to do their first game. They played FCS South Dakota State, and they had their hands full with them. Give them credit. They are undefeated. But they have played a bunch of teams that have had backup quarterbacks when they've had to play them. And so I think that there is still a lot of skepticism with Minnesota. That's why you don't see them in the top 16. You see them behind a 2-loss Michigan. You see them behind 2-loss Florida and Auburn and even K-State. So, but they now is where it gets heavy. And if they can answer the bell on these and beat some of these better teams, they're gonna shoot up the committee rankings. But right now, I think there's still quite a bit of skepticism with them, and similar to where I think Baylor's at right now. I mean, they're not as far back. I think they're 12, but they are behind a couple of 2-loss teams from the SEC as well.
And in terms of 1-loss teams, Georgia, Oregon, Utah, and Oklahoma, who you see this week, who has the best chance to win out and make it, you think?
Georgia. I'm sorry, you said Georgia, Oregon,
Utah, and Oklahoma, who you see this week.
Yeah. I don't think, Georgia's going to have to get through either LSU or Auburn, it looks like. And I mean, to me, that's a much tougher opponent than anybody else is going to have there. I would say Oklahoma, to me, has the best chance because I think they're the best team in the Big 12, whereas Utah and Oregon are very similar. Oregon has the better offensive line. Utah has the better defensive line. Utah's quarterback is playing terrific, Tyler Huntley, but he is playing on a gimpy knee. If he can get healthier, I think that will help them. And look, Utah, the rest of their regular season schedule, they're going to play 3 teams that are all sub 500, so they should cruise into the Pac-12 title game. Whereas I still think, though, Oklahoma, to me, is the class of the Big 12, especially with Lincoln Riley's offense. I would say Oklahoma has the best chance of making it through to run the table to get to the playoff.
Bruce, thanks for the time, man. Travel safe to the heartland. Enjoy Iowa State, Oklahoma, and we'll chat down the line. There's going to be lots to talk about.
There will. Thank you, Rich.
Right back at you. At Bruce Feldman, CFB on Twitter. I follow him. You should as well.
For more of The Rich Eisen Show, tune to Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV for free on BR Live or download the Rich Eisen Show app.